Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine, giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, it's episode 151. I'm Mike Blaine. That is Blaine Birch. We are here to entertain with business, beer, and BS. Thanks for joining us. What's up, Blaine? Tell me, why are we late?
I ate a cherry. Actually, I ate a whole bunch of cherries, and I stupidly thought I was no longer allergic to them because I haven't had a cherry in like 35 years probably, and I never had that bad of a reaction to them. And then today I had some cherries because I tried one the other day and I was totally fine, and I ended up having a pretty bad reaction. So my throat started to constrict. I started to get all sweaty, the whole thing, and took some antihistamines, went to the doctor, read the Riot Act. I feel pretty good now. They've got prescriptions for me that I got to pick up later.
Yeah, I can imagine a doctor going, dude, you know you can't eat cherries. What are you doing? Like, are you trying?
Well, it was the nurse that was taking my blood pressure. And she read me the Riot Act actually, and then when the doctor came in, she was nice about it, but basically also read me the Riot Act for being so dumb. But I literally had thought I'd outgrown it because I'm like, anyway, no. And then they explained to me that as I kept eating more, because honestly, I told them I just had some today and the other day, but I had a few more in between, and it builds up and builds up till you react. And so now I got to let it all flush out of my system over like a couple weeks. And then I can't eat them anymore. So the cooked ones are okay, but it's the raw ones that I react to. It's weird.
Oh, all right. So, in your life, you're supposed to eat your fruits and vegetables. You just happen to be allergic to the wrong side of that equation. Right? You can eat your vegetables. Totally. You can't eat your fruits.
Yeah. I would love nothing more than, especially, Heather likes those. What are those things called? They're like the little cabbages.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. Like, oh man, I wish I was allergic to Brussels sprouts because she likes them, and so I have to cook them every once in a while. And I don't like them at all.
Hey, there is nobody in between on Brussels sprouts. You either like them or you don't, right? And so I like them, but they have to be that roasted, whatever they're doing with them now. But I'm not
that just
ordering
them
like
awful.
Yeah.
Slightly less awful.
They're pretty good.
Anyway,
it's all about your taste buds. Yeah, but it's about your taste buds, which is over time, they always kind of evolve. Like there was probably a point in time when, I know I didn't like horseradish and now I freaking love horseradish. I don't think my Scotch taste buds are in though yet, right? So I'm still bourbon,
really?
A little sweet. Yeah. Oh. See, because Scotch, it's earthy, it's peaty. It's like, it's heavy.
Depends what kind you get. There's, and I'll mention some afterwards that you might want to try that aren't peaty and are really light and are beautiful. I kind of like a little bit of peat. I can drink heavy peat, but also really enjoy one with like zero peat. And there definitely are those. And talk about developing taste for it. So my father-in-law, he's Scottish, and he loves Scotch, right? And so I've tried all kinds of Scotch there, and we buy him Scotch all the time for birthdays and Father's Day and everything else. Really nice bottles, and so I get to try all these ones. And my wife, who is Scottish, and her maiden name was like McGregor, like super Scottish, could never get Scotch past her nose. She's just like, it smells awful. I couldn't. So anyway, I bought this bottle of this super fancy one-off Bendronic or whatever the other night. I'd never tried this one before. Special, like in wine barrel, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And so I convinced her to try it. Dude, she like took a sip and she's like, I like Scotch now. And she told it. So now as I'm getting different bottles of Scotch, I'm pouring a little, I don't think she wants a heavy one, but she still likes Scotch. It's so yeah, your taste can completely develop over time. So now I got another reason to buy a kind of more nice Scotch to have around.
Yeah. So it kind of happened at Finnegraph when I was there. We had a weight loss competition. Right? And I won. Oh my God. It was me versus the CEO. And we had, I think it was a month. How much weight could you lose in a month? And he lost like 11 pounds. I lost 13 pounds, which was huge. That's a lot of weight in a month, right? But generally, if you're a beer drinker, it's pretty easy. You just stop drinking beer and all of a sudden you lose weight. Funny how that works out.
Or cut everything else out.
Yeah, hey, and I was on low calorie. I mean, I ate more salads that month than any other month of my life, right? Because I want to win. I want to win.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: the prize was a bottle of liquor of the other person's choice, but it had to cost more than $100, right? So that eliminated you getting some garbage, whatever.
Yeah.
He knew I didn't like peaty scotches. Guess what I got? I think it was, I don't remember the name of it. I'm going to call it Pete in a bottle because I think it was all Pete. That's all it was.
Yeah. There's one bottle we got my father-in-law one time because he likes peaty, a little bit of peat in his scotch. And it was really heavily peated. And he just went, man, I got to chew this stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a little strong. But I like the ones that are a little more middling. I like Lagavulin 16, but the price has gone up to stupid rates now. So a lot of them I'll have like it's got a little bit nice touch of it, but and I'll drink some bourbon too. But I do find that I lean definitely more towards Scotch. So, but there's some I should line you up with that you'll like. I think.
All right, so I become a fan kind of Lafroig. If I'm going to drink a Scotch that has heavy peat towards
it's got a lot of peat.
Yeah. So I mean that's the one I kind of maybe I got used to it. So I'll go there, or if I'm really missing it, I'll just go out and chew part of the grass. Like I'll just pull up part of the grass in the yard and just chew on that for a bit.
Yeah.
It's the same. I think you might get the same effect.
There's one that's very very light on that. Is Arran, Arran. It's really good. It's really nice. So you'll have to try some less peaty ones. I think you'll like them.
All right. So this show is about beer, not peaty scotches. So let me tell you about Rachel Barnett over at Gentle Frog. Right? She is somebody that if you want to know QuickBooks, you want to learn it quickly, you want to understand it, you want to really deep dive into QuickBooks. Contact her, Rachel Barnett at Gentle Frog. She's also one of our beer sponsors, so that's why we mention her.
And got a couple more. Larry Weinstein, best CPA in Houston. You need a CPA, go talk to Larry.
Yeah, and the other Mike Blaine, I'm going to call him out this time. The other Mike Blaine out of Baltimore. And you know what? I got to tell you what, he's one of those guys that I give a lot of hell to, but I give a lot of hell to him because I really love him. Mike, thank you for your beer sponsorship.
And finally, I'm going to thank Larry, or I'm going to thank neighbor Pat for you, even though Pat, you just keep bringing Mike beer, and I just hear how good it is, and I never get to actually try it. So one of these days, I'll make it down your way, and so I can try some of your beer and hang out with Mike for a bit.
I still have part of that growler of that Irish, that red ale that he made. That's just the Killian's Irish Ale, or whatever knockoff. Man, it was so good. I still got a little bit of that out there. So what are you drinking today? What do you got? Well,
so the topic was what? Can you refresh my mind on what it was called again? Because I picked this because of the topic, and I can't quite remember what the title was now.
All right. So if you're new to the show and you're like, what the hell is going on here? They haven't talked about anything yet, and who knows what's going on. We are going to talk about trimming the fat, right? Which is cutting cost. Making your company that lean, mean business machine that it should be. So how do you cut costs? Because I've had so many conversations about that this week that I'm like going, let's talk about it. Let's talk about when, where, why, what, and how.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. Very topical for even my conversations this week. So the lean, mean, fighting machine business, I picked Speed Cobra, NEIPA from Snake Lake here in Alberta. A terrific brewery. They make excellent beer. I've tried the Speed Cobra and it's delicious. So if you're down Sylvan Lake Way in Alberta, or even just any of the Alberta liquor stores likely have it, check out Speed Cobra. These guys are awesome.
Right on. All right. So here's what I went with. It was funny you said somebody's from Scotland. Who's from Scotland? You mentioned it. just a
Oh,
second
my
ago?
father-in-law is Scottish, and like Heather's Scottish roots and that. So yeah.
All right, so I'm going to have a Scottish ale from
Nice.
Oskar Blues Brewery, right?
Oscar Blues, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Old Chub because, well, Old Chub's going to be talking about cost cutting today. But it comes back to that's what it comes down to. But I love a good Scottish ale, and I saw this, and I'm going, man, I got to try it. I got to put it, put it into play here. So
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
And good
All
topic
right.
today.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's think about this. We mentioned 4 people. If you want to be one of the people we mentioned at the beginning of the show, that's our beer sponsors, the people that we talk about. It takes $5 an episode. If you have $5 that you want to spend in your advertising budget, this is the place to do it because not only is it evergreen, where it's going to last forever, but you get folks like us that are going to put your brand right in front of everybody that we talk to.
Absolutely. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And now we're actually going to dive in from after a bit of a long stretch of BS. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here because this is, like I said, this is super topical topic.
All right. So there's 4 ways to make more money in your company, right? I don't care how you describe it to me. I don't care how you talk about it. There's only 4 ways. And you can increase sales, which is kind of the hardest one, right? That's where everybody struggles with. How do I sell more? You can also cut cost of goods sold. I got a brain freeze. You can cut cost of goods sold, which is really negotiating better with your vendors or changing your pricing strategy that gives you a little bit better gross profit. The other one is you can increase price. And some people go, well, if I increase price, doesn't that increase sales? Not necessarily. I could increase price and sell less, but make more money, right? It's a weird phenomenon that way. And the last way, there's only 4, like I said, the last way is to cut cost, cut expenses.
Yeah.
So that's where I wanted to start today because there's only 4. And it's a weird thing that there's only 4, the way business seems so big and so elaborate and so complicated. There's only 4 things. So
yeah, and it's now implementing that is obviously harder than it looks and harder than it seems because you have to be obviously really careful on what you cut because it's going to affect your business. And the worst thing you can do, not the worst thing actually, but you cut some costs, especially let's say your service business, you cut some staff and then the big job lands and you can't necessarily get them back. They're not likely sitting on their butt waiting for you. And so you have to be careful because you have to be able to deliver. So it can be a little bit of a fine balance. But, I was on with Melissa Diaz from High Rock today. We had a little video we made up. And she basically said, like, this is every one of her clients are absolutely tracking cash flow to the penny. And she said, we've coached a lot of them to literally cut costs down to the bone. And the only thing left is sales. But if you haven't taken that route yet, that's the first place to go. See where you can cut costs and see where you can reduce the price of your COGS, your price of your goods sold, if there's some potential to do that. Because I have never seen it this bad, even back in 2008, 2009. Sure as hell wasn't this bad during the pandemic. This is when businesses are getting hit. I have seen more posts on social media of businesses, and we're hearing more businesses going under, running on fumes, looking for help. This is a really tough time right now.
Yeah, super interesting because I take a slightly different view. When you said that's where you should start, I don't think that's true. Me personally, right? I've got this technique called mining your business for hidden cash, and I have actually given advice to people that they're okay with not cutting costs. They're okay. There's other low-hanging fruit. There's money that's sitting in gross profit. There's money that's sitting in inventory, or the way they collect business coming through. So I don't know that that's always true. Here's the biggest thing is that if you are going to start there, if you are going to start cutting costs, make sure you're not touching the ones that drive your revenue. And I got a story, but I got a story about that because if you cut that cost, you're also cutting part of your revenue.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm gonna qualify it here and then we're gonna get into some depth here, but I'm gonna qualify it here because The quickest and easiest way is to cut costs, but only some of them. So what I'm talking about is the low hanging fruit. And every business, I'm sure, as you go through line by line, go through your all of your data, all of your records, go through your bank statements, whatever you have to do. I guarantee you're going to find some money that is like, I can fix that today. I didn't even know we were paying for that today. And there's, it's cutting that really easy low hanging fruit you can do fast, but then the next level gets really hard. And then you start looking at all of these other things that you can do, raising your pricing, but that could be challenging right now. Lowering your COGS could be challenging right now. There's no guarantee. When other people are involved, there's no guarantee, but when it's only your decision, you have some room to move right away, right?
Yeah, so it's really cool. At Finnegraph, we actually had a coffee service, right? Like in the office. Coffee was there. You just pulled down a bag, and it was always there, and it was hooked into the water line and all that. When we had a lean time, what do you think is the first thing we cut?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, dude. Hey, can you run down? If we need coffee, we're just going to go buy it ourselves, bring it up to the place, and run it through the same machine because the machines are hardwired in. But we're not going to continue the subscription-based coffee thing. That's what you do when you got a little extra money. You can kind of do that type of stuff. But
yeah.
All right, so I'll tell you a story about 2008, right? But before that, I want to ask you, what happened in your lifetime where you cut the wrong expense? Can you go there? Do you have a story like, oh shit, I shouldn't have cut there?
I'm gonna have to think on that. I'm sure I have some. Nothing pops right to the top though.
All right, so let me talk about 2008. You remember the bankers burnt the world down, and everybody was like scrambling, like we're cutting costs like crazy because, yeah. But I was in the restaurant bar business at the time. Well, most of my clientele were construction type workers. Right, they would come in at the end of the job day and pack the place. You think about that. If there's fewer houses being built, there's fewer, decks being built, those type of things. Mm-hmm. They don't have the money to spend.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like going, I've got to cut somewhere, and I cut labor. All right, so I cut labor because, well, that was the biggest thing that I have. I mean, people always go, "Oh, you should cut alcohol. You should cut food products." No, those are assets. Yeah. I gotta have that. You gotta remember, if I have liquor, that's an asset. I have it there to make money. I generate money off that. I don't want to cut that. But I cut labor because maybe I had to pick up some bartending shifts, which I did. Maybe I had to sometimes jump in the kitchen, which I did. Yep. But we didn't just fire people. As they quit, as people's lives got harder or changed, we changed the way we hired, which is maybe not full-time, but part-time. Maybe not at all. Maybe we just gave more hours to other people that needed it. So it's one of those things where we changed in labor. In the bar business, there's another big expense that nobody really thinks about or talks about. They just expect it, which is when you go to the bar, have you ever seen a live band?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. How do you think they get paid? Right. So have you ever seen, now I don't know about Canada, but when you've been down in Scottsdale, you've probably seen Sunday ticket NFL games up on the TV. Yep. Right. And they have to pay for that subscription to do that. It's not like a subscription like, oh, at my house, I just buy a Sunday ticket.
No, that's different.
It's a big expense, right? And it's based on the number that the fire department assigns to your business.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
They have tiers. So DirecTV has tiers of, if you have 99 people on the wall, it's one price. If you got 250 on the wall, it's, whatever their tiers are,
gotcha.
You pay more. Because they assume that you are rebroadcasting this to make more money. Yep. I'm showing this football game so people stay there and they watch it and you make more money. It's the same way with a live band. It's the same way with karaoke. It's the same way with a jukebox. All these things are expenses that a bar incurs, and it's considered like marketing expense. Why? Because it's used to attract people and keep them in the bar.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I cut labor, which means I think I'll have fewer people, so I have to service fewer people. I did not cut marketing because I'm automatically guaranteeing I'll have fewer people. If you take away people's reasons to come, they're going to oblige. They're going to not come. And that's what happened to a bar next door to mine, right? A bar next door to the one I owned. I saw it on a Saturday night. I'm like, oh shit, this is my theory in practice. I see my place, lights, music, line out the door because I had a live band going that night. The person next door cut all entertainment, only had a regular TV, had 3 guys sitting at the bar watching soccer. So which one do you go to if you see 2 bars side by side? The empty one with 3 guys in it or the one with the line out the door?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I would probably go watch soccer until the line went down, but that's just me. Wait a minute.
I didn't want to totally deflate you with your thing, but because I agree, because I get the point you're trying to make. But honestly, if I see 2 bars side by side and one is a lineup, I'm just going sitting down and ordering a beer. I'm not standing in line. I'm not a lineup guy.
Me too. I am not a line guy. I'm not a line guy, but people love to stay in lines. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Flip it the other way. And if you said, okay, there's 2 bars, one with 3 guys watching whatever, and the other one, there's 1 table left. Yeah, don't go for the 1 table left. But I'm not standing in line. I don't do lines very well at all.
Hey, that means not only do you not do lines, you don't stand up when you go to the bar. You have to have a place to sit.
I do like table service, but I do like walking up to the bar and talk. I do it at the breweries all the time. Even one of the ones we go to regularly now has table service. I still kind of just like walking up to the bar and ordering my beer because it feels, I don't know. I'm used to it. I like doing that. So
I'm the same way. I mean, I prefer to sit anymore. I prefer to go in and sit, even if it means I got to go in a little early. Like we went to the Riverwalk. Shane came to town. You know my best friend Shane. He came to town.
Yeah.
We
Shane,
took
are you
him
listening? Chatter up.
Yeah, Shane's not saying shit this week, right? He's dogging us out last week because we're not answering texts, but he's not saying shit this week. That's how we know you're fake, Shane. I'm just kidding you. Yeah, of course, that's my best friend. We're messing with him. But anyway, I took Shane and Tia, his fiance, down the Riverwalk. But we got in a little early, which means we got a table almost near the dance floor. That's almost like unheard of at like a club. It's not clubs. I guess it's kind of a club. But we're sitting there, and this place packs up around us in a matter of an hour. We were like minutes away from being a line stander, just because we went just a few minutes earlier. So when they talk about, they have these early bird specials, take advantage of that. So I'm telling you, as a 50-year-old, that stuff is the best ever right now.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that'd be hard to cut, those happy hours. You drive people in, you get them used to coming to your place. You develop those habits, it's whatever you can do.
Yeah. So there have been places that take away things during a happy hour. Like we're going to have a happy hour, but we're not going to give you wings. Even a thing like that says, I'm losing money on wings, I'm not going to give you wings, that could also cut your revenue. It's a weird thing. So you got to remember, and when you look at all these things that you're going to cut, is it attached to a reason why people come here? Like my coffee at Finnegraph, nobody cares. Nobody buys or sells or quits software product because the guy selling it doesn't have coffee. That's an easy cut.
Yeah.
But if I take away your wings, the reason why you came in there in the first place, you can quit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the type of thing that you cannot, you have to look forward on this stuff. You can't just do kind of willy-nilly. Like you're saying, if you cut the wrong thing, it's going to cost your business. It's going to cost you revenue. If you cut the right thing, it can be just some low-hanging fruit. Then you can start looking at pricing. You can start looking at, again, like you said, don't cut marketing, don't cut. How do you know if you should do that? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how you do that. You come over to us at dryrun.com. Hey, you like that? Hey, Pat, I did the segue this week because we are in the odd week, right? Yeah, we are. No, come and talk with us at dryrun.com, because this is literally the conversations we're having right now. How do you know what your revenue is going to look like? How do you know where to cut costs, what costs you can cut that aren't going to generate revenue? You're just laughing now because that's such a slick segue there for first time ever.
That was, it took you 151 times to get there, but okay, yeah, I like it.
151. And I finally just thought, there's my opening, and I'm going for it. But come and talk with us at dryrun.com, because we will help you forecast your cash flow, your sales pipeline, model scenarios, get multiple people involved, multiple locations, whatever you need to do so you can understand where your business is headed. And I hear it every day. Every business is tracking their cash flow. Okay, let's take it one more step further. Understand what exactly that means to your business and how it affects the future of your business, not just today, but it paints that path forward. So come and talk with us at dryrun.com.
I'm going to pile on that. It is one of the best modeling scenario softwares I've ever seen. So if you've not seen Dryrun, go check it out. They got a great, fantastic free trial. Go check it out. Plug in your stuff, model a scenario, and you'll like it. Even if you're trying to stick to your knitting and modeling, if I sell 5 more Fadiddle hoppers.
Oh, you got both of them in. Both of the magic words.
Come on. Well, you got me, so I'm going to get you back.
It's been weeks since you got, just so you guys, if you're listening now, we try and work good enough. The little hopper is sticking to your knitting in every episode. And Mike did a twofer in one, because I pulled that out last week. I did a twofer in one phrase. So it's, no, respect, man. That was nice. That was slick. That was smooth.
Hey, I still respect and admire Dryrun and what you guys are doing over there. So keep it up.
Oh, appreciate it. Right. And but going back to the topic here, though, and I think we should actually unpack all 4 of them. And we've talked a little bit about, again, cutting costs, like you mentioned, cutting labor costs. Before Dryrun, I had a service business. Even in 2008, 2009, when the bottom fell out, we didn't cut a single person. And I'll be completely honest with you, looking back, I'm not sure that was the smartest decision. We were fortunate enough to sell our way out of it, that it became a smart decision. But at the time, it probably wasn't, because I think we probably carried more risk than we should have. And we did it on a lot of belief that we could change the channels that we were marketing to and build revenue again. And we managed to do that. And of course, you don't want to cut people. And that was the other thing, is like, it's not just about, the first thing, it wasn't about business. The first thing was, these were all people that had families and mortgages and were friends and we really respected. So we didn't want to lose anybody, but also knew we can't send signals to the market that we're contracting, even though everyone else was. But mostly it was, when we land these jobs, I need the people there to deliver. And fortunately, we landed the jobs. We sold our way out. It ended up being a bit of a speed bump for us. But I'm not sure, looking back, it was actually the right decision. In hindsight, it worked out. But was it the right decision to keep that much of a load of expenses every month? I'm not totally sure it was.
Yeah, let's think about employees. Employees are always the emotional decision. You're like, man, because these are people. They got things going. I mean, they've pinned themselves to you, saying, I trust my family to you. That's the way I look at it, right? If I hire somebody, I feel obligated to make sure that I'm taking care of their family the way that we agreed, right? The way we agreed, if we agreed a salary, the way we agreed. Yep. So when you have to cut somebody and it's not for performance, right? Think about that, right? That's the hardest decision you can make in businesses. I have to let you go because our business doesn't support that position anymore.
Yep.
That's hard. It's not about you. It's not about anything else. It's about, we don't have enough money.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. I've through my time, we downsized basically the same way you did. It was either attrition, and we just didn't fill positions, or it was performance based, right? And we've been really fortunate to be able to do that. But I don't want to be sitting here preaching, do anything you can to keep people. Because I'll tell you, businesses now, I'm talking with them every day, they're struggling. There's a lot that are running on fumes. There's a lot that are failing every month and every week. And early in the pandemic, we were all told over and over again, I still remember, and I'm not getting political, everybody, I'm a little bit, because as a business owner, this is what affected us. All the messaging, keep your staff, keep your team, keep your staff, we'll help you, we'll help you, we'll help you, we'll help you. And they gave a little bit of help, and then they pulled the rug out and said, screw you guys. And now everyone, at least up in Canada here, is getting hit. And we're hearing about these stories. And I'm gonna bring up a business here because, okay, if you're in Edmonton, two things here. Go support these guys. I saw a Facebook post the other day written by the founder of Honest Dumplings here in Edmonton, which is a food business manufacturer. And they have, I can't remember the name of it, but they have a little food conglomerate with other small local businesses. And they put out a post on Facebook pleading for help to get through the summer because it's been such a challenge. And they also, for some reason, they didn't mention names, but they said they didn't get into an event that they've got into every year and have really depended on to make their money. This is not the type of business that posts a hell of a lot on social media. I don't think the founders are even in that mindset, but they were pleading with the community to help them get through the summer. And I've met the founders before, and I went over and bought some. And honestly, we also shifted our shopping. We started shopping at the Italian Center, small local owned business with a few locations. And we went and bought some of these Honest Dumplings because we wanted to support this business. And holy shit, are they good! So we were there the other night, and I bought some more because I'm like, I'm going to help them, and it's easy to do because they are delicious. So if you're in Edmonton, I don't know if they're in other places in Alberta, go and support these guys at Honest Dumplings. They've been around for years. They've had nothing. They haven't done anything wrong. They're getting the shit kicked out of them like a lot of small business in Canada, local business, because of this awful combination of the pandemic, inflation, supply chain, and interest rates and all these things that have crept up. And I bring them up because that's not a one-off. And I think I mentioned before the show, I have seen more posts on social media this summer from businesses, not necessarily that direct, but from business owners that are saying, help your local business, help any small business. They're all struggling. And I've never seen it like this. And as we're talking with our CPA partners and CFO partners, we just keep hearing it over and over again. Hell yeah, we are trying to keep them alive. It is a very difficult time out there right now. And so this is, again, why this is so topical, right?
Well, here's what's something, piling on that just a little bit. I have had an influx of people wanting my training for their bankers. That's one of the key signals to me. Maybe there are a lot of people struggling, but now I have banks saying, I need you to come in and train our bankers on financial management for the closely held business, which is the small business. And they just call it closely held because it's like small business. But you think of that. Now bankers are saying, okay, not only do I need to know how the small business owner thinks, I need to know how to communicate with them in a way that gets them to be more bankable. That's a weird thing. I'm always on the side of, I'm not on the side of the banks like you think I am. I'm on the side of a better communication between banks and business owners. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not always there. So what you're saying is, hey, it's been tough. It's this, that, and the other. Well, what I'm seeing on my side, I'm talking about in the last month, the last 4 weeks, more and more and more banks are asking for my type of training to connect back to small business owners. So they're trying to come down market to give people money. Now, here's the thing with that. If you're a small business owner and you're struggling and you're just not paying attention to your financial statements or your cash flow forecasting, you got to remember banks lend on cash, on your equity. How much money does your business generate? If you're not doing that, you'll never get a loan. It just won't.
Yeah.
So take a few things to heart. Go look at Dry Run. Go look at Cash Flow Mike's education and stuff, because I'm going to teach you how to be able to connect back to money that's available to you already, so you don't feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't supposed to be a sales pitch, but that's supposed to be a dude. I mean, if you're, I don't care if it's my, well, it's not. It's a little sneaky, but but it's one of those things where I'm going, man, I'm telling you, if you're feeling like that, if guys like Blaine Birch is seeing it when he goes out, there's things that you can do to change it today. Don't wait any longer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to dig in a little bit more here, because we've talked about cutting costs. Like I said, because again, this year, as I've talked with business owners, they're finding costs that are bleeding out of their business. In fact, I talked with a business owner a couple months ago, and they were using one of these some sort of volume thing for the software, and he found out they're paying over $3,000 a month, and he goes, we weren't even using it. Had no idea. And when he found out, he's like, oh my God, like this is not. And so there are things like that. There's areas that you can cut costs. We've talked about that. But like you mentioned, there's a few other ways that you can generate more revenue. So one is obviously increasing sales. But like you said, that's tough. And it's not just tough because it's expensive to market and everything else. It's tough because it's tough to sell right now, because everyone's suffering from the same thing. And so especially for B2B, people aren't necessarily buying as much as they were a couple of years ago, or certainly before the pandemic. But one of the tricky parts you mentioned was lowering COGS. So I totally agree with you. Go in and talk with your suppliers, look for other suppliers, negotiate. But it's hard on them too. Their costs are going up. So it might not be the fact that you might be able to lower it. You might be lucky to hold steady right now. And then raising price, the tricky part is, will the market bear it? Now, they might. They completely might. They might not even blink. Or you might be selling, actually raising your price, selling a little less. And again, you got to model all this out and go, did it make me more or less? And how's that going to play out over the next year?
Yeah, we'll think about that. All right, so you got like 4 different things they're talking about. Right.
Oh, 4, no, but I was going over the 4 and how they work together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I had a client with the expense control problem. Just like you talked about, they find stuff. I'm going down through it. I'm going, why are we spending $3,000 for this software? Oh, I have to do that because that was our old CRM. And I have data in there that I don't want to lose. Why don't you export the data out of there? It's got an export button. And in a matter of like 10 minutes, we exported the data out, put it somewhere where he could still access it and use it however he wanted to. But he had done that for 3 years. That's almost $10,000 he spent because he didn't know what export meant. That's not calling him dumb. That's not calling him dumb. That means, hey, it's your data. Why not call the person and say, hey, I only keep this software subscription open because I don't want to lose what I put in. How do I get what I put in out?
Yeah.
Chances are there's a way to do that.
And I think that the key thing is make sure you talk with your team about these things. And I don't want to point out software necessarily, because that's just one little. It could be contracts, could be your coffee service, like your water bottle, whatever it is. But this company I was talking about that was going, and I'm talking several thousand a month. When he saw the reports or his credit card statements, whatever, he just assumed the software was being used. It's when he talked with his staff and find out a couple of people are using it, but kind of just barely, and it wasn't that important. That's where it was okay.
Yeah.
This is not a worthwhile expense, but that is cost cutting as well as when you're trying to figure out what do you cut. Gather information, have those meaningful conversations with your team, and understand, is it something you can cut or is it something you can't? Like, we have a giant software bill that we have every month. I've cut it down a lot over the last couple of years because I started to take a deep dive look at it. But there's some that are just like, we literally run our business off this stuff. It's not getting cut. What we're talking about is cutting the stuff first that is literally a waste of money. You should be cutting this stuff in the best of times. That's the stuff where you start, I think.
Yeah, you said best of times. I'm like going, we do it because it's a convenience. But there's an alternate method. I can cut the convenience, and it costs me an extra 15 minutes or an extra whatever it is. But if it's a convenience, let's start there, which means I only do it because of that. It doesn't drive revenue. It only makes my life a slightly bit easier in the world. The hard one is the person, right? Remember, we said this was the employee. The hard one's the person, but you got to remember that every position you create in your company is designed to drive a revenue function. I don't care if it's a support function where I'm doing payroll. You're doing that because the people that drive the revenue, right? We have payroll because of those people. So every even support position is about driving a revenue function. And sometimes eliminating one position saves 10. And I've seen it time and time and time again, where if I would have just cut that one person sooner, I would have saved my company. The company fails. The whole company fails because you just stayed too long, right?
And that's all where the jobs are lost.
And everybody. You don't lose one, you lose 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's the bigger picture, yeah.
So GE, you ever heard of like when Jack Welch was running GE, what he did with the staff?
No.
10% of the labor force was cut every year. The bottom, and I'm telling you, it's cutthroat, right? This is the difference between small business and corporations. It's cutthroat to the point where it's performance based. You're here because you perform or not. So, but when you're in the lowest 10% of performance, they cut those folks.
Yeah.
When it came down, because they figured that it was easier and cheaper to cut the lowest 10% and re-recruit than it was to try to get you up to, be a better performer.
Yeah. And some of that is still going on, surprisingly. But you know what? If I suppose in some sense, especially when it's that tight out there, like you said, like, do you lose the one job or do you lose the 10? And you have to make some of those tough decisions, because if you're putting your business at risk, it's not like of literally failing. That's not the right decision. Running that risky is not the right decision. Selling your way out of something is not necessarily the right decision, right?
Hey, so what was that thing where it was Star Trek had this unwinnable situation where you had to make the least amount of impact? Do you remember that? I forget what it's called. There's some test they put all the commanders to. All right, so that was dumb. I shouldn't have said that on the podcast, but there's a thing.
You can't. I'm more of the Star Wars genre than Star Trek, so I'm familiar with it, but not that. But, yeah.
No, but there was a test they put all the commanders through where they wanted you to have the least amount of impact to everything across the board, right? It's the equilibrium and balance of the world. But, what it comes down to is you still have to cut somebody. Right? You still have to make a cut. Nobody is safe. There's no perfect situation where everybody survives in Star Wars or Star Trek. But it's the same thing here. there's no perfect situation when you're short on cash and you have to cut costs. There's no perfect situation where everybody survives. Sometimes you have to let them go.
Well, yeah, and the I think one of the trickiest parts is, and there's a lot of factors that go into it, but the number one factor to start with is not personality, not how much, and not how many kids they have and how big their mortgage is. The number one is probably, can it help us survive? Right? Like, because that's a situation that we're in. If we're doing those kind of cuts, can it help the business survive and those other 10 jobs survive? Because just cutting labor, just like, well, I really, I like this person a lot, and this one's kind of owly in the morning. Yeah, but you're looking again. You got to look at bigger picture here, because I wish I had read I hadn't got around to reading the article today, but I did see an article about the number of bankruptcies, and I'm not sure if it's an all-time high. It's just the gist of what I saw from the glance I had. It's really incredibly high, and I'm sure each one of those founders will look back and say, might have made a few other decisions here. And at the same time, I read an article about businesses, because again, it's so topical right now. And I read an article, and I wish I knew who the writer was, and I'm gonna completely paraphrase his quote, and I can't even give him credit because I don't remember exactly who it was. But I remember and I know it was a he, so don't, and I just happened to, I remember that. But he said, you need to stay alive as long as you possibly can, because some random Tuesday, it'll start to work. And you got to be around for that random Tuesday. And it was just, it was one of those things that kind of like, yeah, that's, I've seen that before in business numerous times over the decades, where you just survive and just hang in long enough. And suddenly, it's not guaranteed, but the longer you hang in, the more likely that random Tuesday something comes in and changes the fortunes of the business. And I've felt that before. I felt that where, I look back and it feels like you can see those times in the rearview mirror when it really changed. In the time, it probably was long, slow, and you didn't even realize it. But looking back, you can point at things and go, that's where things changed there. That's where things changed there. That's where we really started to grow, right?
We talked about that in a previous episode where we described the difference between push and pull.
Yeah.
Pushing your business out, like, I'm struggling. Hey, anybody look at my stuff.
Yep.
All of a sudden, they're pulling it from you. They start to like it. Something happens on a random Tuesday, and you don't see it. You never see it, like you're saying. It just happens, and you see the results maybe months after the fact that it really happened.
Yeah. I can go look back several times in dry run, but even back in my my agency days. And when I think about it now, way, way, way after the fact, I can literally sometimes point to a day or a job or a client or something that ended up being a massive turning point for the business, like a massive win. But at the time, I suspect, like you said, it actually occurred over months. But I can look back and see the significance of it now. And that's the reason you hang in, and not every business is going to make it. Absolutely. But that's why you hang in as long as you can, because the tides can turn, the markets can turn, the client could walk through the door, right?
It's like I talk about what happened at Finnegraph. A conversation I had at the Copacabana with somebody from Moody's Analytics turned into a differentiation in the whole business. But there was something that happened a year before that made that conversation significant. That's really weird, because when I talked to her, she said, "Oh, I have you guys stuff in a desk file of the person that got sick and I replaced." It's a real weird thing that a year before I'd made a conversation, made an impact. They created a file on it, wanted to take action. It was a year later. And it wasn't until I randomly met this other person.
Yeah,
So weird, man. So weird.
I remember a big pinnacle, like a pivotal job that we got after the 2008 floor fell out from under us. And at that time, and I've mentioned this before, about 70% of our market were government agencies. And we worked for every freaking agency in the province, a bunch, totally different group, but in the city, and even a few federal ones. And that was our bread and butter. And when they closed those budgets, they closed for years. And so we had to transfer over to corporate. We had to make that move fast. And I'm like, holy shit, how do we do this? And one of the jobs that I remember being a really big one for us and that helped stabilize us was probably a cup of coffee 2 years earlier. And, probably a quarterly cup of coffee for a year, 2 years. And then I got an introduction to somebody else, and we did a little bit of work. And then all of a sudden one day I got a phone call. Blaine, I got a problem. Let's go for coffee. And his problem was, I need your help. I need it now. And there are a lot of zeros involved in that. And it was a very big, probably a 1.5-year project. It was a really big project for us. And it sort of changed the direction of the company, or the fortunes of the company in some way. Yeah. It took years of this relationship building to get to that.
And some of us quit before that time. Mm-hmm. Some of us quit before it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the famous, and I've mentioned it before in the show, but I think it was the founder of Bonobos, which is a clothing brand. I remember the How I Built This with Guy Raz podcast, which I'm going to plug because I love that podcast. And one of his quotes, again, I don't remember the exact word, I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically he said, businesses don't fail, founders give up. That was his quote. And it's because he barely scraped through 11th hour, got some money in the door. Of course it isn't true. Businesses fail, but the longer you can hang in, and all these things we're talking about, cutting costs on your operations side, can you reduce the cost of your service or your product? Can you increase the profit margin by increasing price? Like, all of these things can be looked at and massaged, and can you sell your way out of it? I've had 2 founders I know over the last couple of months. One literally said to me directly, I got to sell my way out of this. And another one, different words, said exactly the same thing. Boy, that's hard. But that's, and I've done it. I've done it before. It's, you got to drive those sales, right? You got to find a way.
All right. So we spent an hour on this. Here's what I'm taking away. My final words is, don't cut expenses that drive your revenue. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I would start there. Absolutely start there, cutting costs, but be very careful. And I know I'm going to mention again, plot your way forward, not just what seems to help today, but what is going to help you for the next 6, 8, 10, 12, 18 months to be able to drive that revenue, because that's what you need to do. You need that money coming in the door, and you need the profit margin to be in the to be in the black there. So
there you go. Hey, episode 151 in the books. So it's like, why didn't we get Bacardi to sponsor this?
You mentioned that last week, and you had to explain to me what you meant by okay.
Serious?
Yeah.
But Bacardi 151 is like the elevated version of Bacardi.
I've never even heard of it. Okay, so I'm going to explain that, back when I was in my 20s, there was no elevated version of anything because we couldn't afford anything. So I know Bacardi, there's Bacardi cheap-ass rum and Bacardi cheap-ass this and that. And then when I could afford it, I went to nice Scotch and sipping tequilas and lately, last 10 years, really good craft beer. So I skipped all that middle ground stuff, just is gone. I skipped it all. I turned into like a whiskey snob and a beer. No, I shouldn't say snob. Nerd, beer nerd, whiskey nerd, whatever. That's where I am.
Here's what I just heard, that if you want to sponsor the show, you can do it no matter who you are, because Blaine will back it. He'll back it.
I will back it by, let me explain how. So you can go and buy us a beer at mikeandblaine.com, or you can even just text us and tell us like, hey, you want to sponsor? And we'll find a way to help you sponsor. $5 an episode. You can buy us a beer. And if you really want me to sip some scotch on one of these episodes, you can also sponsor some scotch sipping. Same thing. $5 now, and I'll pour a nice scotch instead.
All right. So let's do a scotch episode. What's a number for scotch? What's a good number? We have to have a number.
I don't know. Nothing comes into mind. Okay, how about this? We'll randomly pick an episode. It'll be Scotch episode, and we'll come up with some bullshit reason of why it's the Scotch episode. How about that?
Fair enough. Hey, by the way, you've been listening to Mike and Blaine. I am Mike Blaine. That is Blaine Birch of Dry Run. That's weird.
How much have you had since we started this episode? I don't think it was a strong one, was it?
Dude, what is this thing? That's why I looked at it. I'm like, it's 9%. That's why I went like this when I go, oh my God. Yeah, it's 9%.
It's a little bit heavier. I've also have Benadryl and cherry allergens all coursing through my veins right now. So I just added that onto the Speed Cobra from Snake Lake. So go check those guys out.
That's why we call it Business Beer and BS. Here's what you end up with at the end of the show. I appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Thank you. This is a fun one. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and don't miss an episode. Thanks, guys.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.